success is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. Mm-hmm. And that was a Churchill quote, I believe. And you think about his situation. Every night they turned out the lights and got bombed by the Germans for how long? And they had to wake up every day and keep the fight going, And I think in business, that's sometimes how it is. And we go through tough times, like we've been going through a little bit recently, or like we went through with COVID, or like we went through with 2008, and you're just taking on the chin for a lot of times, and you just got to keep getting back up.
Welcome to another episode of Relocation Leader. This is going to be part 2 of a 2-part conversation with Ben Cross. Enjoy.
The future of the industry is a really, really complex question.
Well, what makes it complex? I'm curious.
There's so many facets to it, right? Mm-hmm. So there's all the service verticals of it, right? So you have the RMC vertical, the managed relocation vertical, the sub verticals of household goods, temp housing, real estate, mortgage, et cetera. And then you have times global, right? And so now times 50 countries or whatever, let's say, where there's sizable relocation activity in. And so you have this multiplier effect. So it's like, so on a macro level, I would say we are in a shrinking industry of managed relocation. It's been shrinking if you look at volumes over the last 10, 15 years. On a micro level, there's pockets of opportunity. And I think it's important to focus on what those pockets of opportunity are. For instance, global is growing. I had a speaker, Parag Khanna, Dr. Parag Khanna, who's phenomenal. He just published a book called Move. He's published several books on mobility, probably the foremost academician thought leader on global mobility in the world. And yet no one in our industry knows who he is or talks about him. And he talks about the migratory patterns of people all over the world. And he says, mobility is increasing. And yet here we are sitting in the managed relocation space. We're like, our pie is shrinking. So what's the delta there? What's the gap? Well, people are doing it independently. They're not doing it as part of a company move. So how do we adapt to meet what we in the moving business we call COD moves, consumer moves, right? How do we adapt to meet the needs of the self-directed relocation transferee or assignee? We're also seeing an increase in business travel and short-term assignments or just long-term business travel. And what are the needs of those people? Well, they still need compliance. They still need business travel tracking. In fact, you could argue compliance requirements are actually at all-time high because countries have woken up to the fact that, gosh, we have people all over the place working here and there. And oh, by the way, and I was literally just talking to Michelle Moore about this, today. And it's like, she brought to my attention, she said, and that could trigger a tax nexus in that country. And we can grab some tax from this big corporation who've been trying to evade taxes from us for this long, so we can go grab it, right? And so there's opportunities for us as the smartest people in the room when it comes to global mobility to help companies navigate that. Similarly, we read the newspaper, old-fashioned newspaper. I feel like I'm getting old, right? We flip open the newspaper over our cup of joe in the morning, and we see front page article after front page article about mass migrations of people, whether it be the war in Ukraine, the Gaza conflict, Brexit, COVID, people repatriating, going here, moving out of state. I mean, all sorts of stuff having to do with the movement of people. And yet we seem like we tell ourselves that our business is shrinking, but yet people are moving all around us. So we have to, I think, re-engineer what we do as service providers in the global mobility industry to wrap our arms around this increasingly fragmented opportunity, but increasing opportunity. So I think there's a lot of really, really cool stuff going on. I love the way that the NEI Global is positioned. I mean, with your offices abroad, great young talent you got here, right? I mean, y'all are well positioned to capitalize on this, but I think we really have to wrap our arms around the tax industry, tax discipline, the immigration discipline, the business travel compliance discipline. These are some of the areas that we have to bone up when our services historically have been very domestic focused, right? Real home sale, moving, temp housing. Like we have to, I think, get good at stuff we haven't always been good at.
Do you have questions for us, Ben?
Yeah, I do have questions for. So NEI Global has been a company that's been around for a long time, kind of one of the pioneers in this space, and MP Dodge and I mean just really deep roots, especially in Omaha, right? But now with offices abroad and kind of being part of the new generation of NEI Global, what gets you excited? Phillip, I'll start with you.
Yeah. So being in the emerging markets sector of client development, you see a lot of companies who, and it's interesting because you were just talking about, it feels like volume in general, and the general consensus is that volume is decreasing. But from my seat, which could give me a skewed perspective, I'm seeing a lot of companies that are overwhelmed with the amount of relocation that they're having to handle in-house. And they're looking for anyone to kind of tell them what to do, help them out, manage it for them. So when they come to us, my seat is a little less, selling NEI and a little more education on relocation. So that gives me a lot of optimism on the growth of the industry. Now, I'm not that, you mentioned that doctor that you had on your podcast, I'm not a PhD on this huge macro scale, but from a micro scale, it does seem like there's a lot of business out there to be won, a lot of people that need help in education. And you see, and you also mentioned relocation is a pretty niche industry. So you don't really lose contacts. They kind of just go to different companies, whether it be on the client side, the service partner side, the RMC side, whatever it may be, people kind of move around. So even in just the 5 years that I've been in the relocation industry, I've seen people start at like a lower level at one company, they move on to the next. And then next thing you know, now 5 years later, they're running a global mobility department for a third company. So you're seeing young talent, and talent in general kind of infuse into the industry. You're kind of running into more and more young people that you've met at industry events. And it's kind of really cool and fascinating at the same time to watch everyone's career growth, So
That's a great point.
I would say that I have a lot of hope in the growth of our industry in general.
It's a great point. And I have seen from a talent acquisition standpoint, the great realignment, reawakening, whatever you want to call it, we had a couple of years ago, a third of people changed jobs in the last 3 years. So there's been a lot, and there were a lot of layoffs in the global mobility space on the corporate side in the last couple of years as large tech companies and such, were laying people off or not moving people. And while that was really tough in the moment, it presents an opportunity because now you have all these new people in those roles. Some of them are really junior, frankly, so you have this wave of new people, young people in these global mobility roles. And that's an opportunity for education. That's an opportunity to connect with them and to find, kind of commonality and kind of where you are in your career and everything, and build long lasting relationships and grow with them as professionals, grow with their companies as professionals. I mean, look at the new most valuable company in the world. We have a new most valuable company in the world valued at over $3 trillion, NVIDIA. This company nobody could spell NVIDIA 3 years ago. And we have a new most valuable company in the world. We talked forever about the FANG, companies, Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google, whatever. And we've got new ones, right? And like, how exciting is that, right? So these are the kinds of mobility programs that they're building this thing. And the growth is wild right now, and they're trying to keep up, and they've got problems they didn't even know they were going to have 6 months ago. And they're in places they never were, or doing things strategically they've never done. And they need that guidance from people like us. So there's so many opportunities out there. You just have to believe that they're out there, because if you don't believe they're out there, you won't find them. It's like that, whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you're right.
You're right. Yeah.
And you gotta be an optimist.
If you don't believe they're out there, you won't even look.
Yeah. I also think with the flip side of the infusion of young talent, there still is a lot of people in our industry who have been around for 20, 30 years who have kind of seen it all. I mean, they've seen 18%.
8% interest
APR,
rates.
back in the 80s, and then all the way down to what, 3% in 2020.
The year I was born, I sat with your CEO Randy Wilson last year and did a podcast, and interest rates were spiking. I think that's when they were 5, and they were spiking. I was like, people are freaking out, and she literally got this piece of paper out, and she showed me. She's like, well, you were born in 1982, and it was 18% when you were born.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, Randy. Really put things in perspective. And like, isn't that the beauty of like having people that have been through cycles,
right?
You know, because they give you such good perspective.
Yeah.
On the patience that comes, you know, with that while everyone's freaking out, you know, the drill.
Right. Right. It definitely gives you a sense of calm. And and that's why leadership is so important. And when we're going through these things and people are saying the volume's shrinking, like we're kind of panicking a little bit. These things happen. I mean, things ebbs and flow. But then you have your leadership who's kind of seen it all, and they're there to kind of part with some wisdom. They're there to kind of show you how they've handled things in the past. We can dust off an old policy that you don't even know of because it went out of style before you started.
Yeah.
And now it's back. So
yeah, buying down points and all that stuff.
Yep.
I mean, now we're doing all this.
And it's kind of like what you're saying with do things to help people, right? Like they're paying it forward by helping us, and then it's going to be on us to kind of consume this knowledge now and then pay it forward when it's our turn. So it's a beautiful thing, and I'm optimistic about it. So.
I love the melding of older generations and younger generations. Like, when we really look at what we're all bringing to the table, like it's so complementary, because they have so much knowledge. And I'm kind of in the middle. I'm 41, right? So I'm that elder millennial that kind of bridges the gap between the digital and the analog generations, right? Yeah. Some people say we're meant to rule the world because of our unique skill sets. I won't say that. Other people have said that. No, but it's so cool. It's so cool because you have people that have so much wisdom and knowledge and have seen it all, done it all, and then you have folks like yourselves who have the know how to get it out there and know how to use social media and know how to use podcasting channels and know how to reach people kind of where they are and how they consume information nowadays. Because people aren't really necessarily taking copies of white papers and passing them to their boss physically. They're ingesting the same knowledge in a white paper right here on a podcast. And I just love it. I love the combination.
I think what excites me, I'm just sort of like the perennial learner. I love learning, and not being in the industry as long as you or you. A lot of this stuff is new to me, so it's kind of like a buffet of knowledge, for me. And one of the things that I love about it is like, we have this podcast. I get to interview a lot of people, and how you said earlier, when you first showed up at your first conference, you're just like, oh goodness, who do I talk to? Like it's a little bit intimidating, And I remember having that same feeling at the first couple of NEI conferences, but after having talked to like Ray Rackham and Olga Collin and you, and like now I'm really looking forward to GPA because I have so many people that I've met, so many people I'm interested in, that have interesting things that we've already talked about, and we can talk about other interesting things. Like I think, coming into it at a time where they're like, oh, so many things are changing. I'm like, yeah, tell me about it. Yeah. Let's learn. The
real treasures in life are those friends that we collect along the way. And those relationships, and you're building those with this podcast series. And it's one of the things that was so beautiful about the Love and Relo thing that I've done is I get the opportunity to sit down with the brightest minds in relocation and outside, have whoever I want on my show, which is great. And I get to have an hour with them uninterrupted to ask them whatever I want. And then at the end of it, the cool thing that people don't see behind the scenes is when the camera goes off, everybody's like, how did I do? Was it okay? Was it good? Oh, my wife texted me. She said she really liked it. Okay, it was great. Okay, I said, okay, it was great. And then you have this little micro trauma event that you just go through because everybody's biggest fear is public speaking. So once it's over, now it's done. We all made it out alive together. Yay, we did it together. We did a thing together, and we'll always have that moment. Yeah. And so then the relationship is so strong.
And then, one thing that's like boggling my mind too is like, when I came into this industry, they say it's an industry built on relationships. I'm like, great. What does that mean? You know, but then like, you know, it's not just like, you know, handshakes in a room, you know, hidden off somewhere. Like I was like, oh wait, you mean like, you know, it's just so segmented. You know, there's so many different needs, and not one company, you know, can provide all the needs. So we all have to like work together. So this is just this like massive web of people working together, all at like different companies, and that like blew my mind. You know, because I'm so used to like, you know, you're a soda company. You make soda and you give it to the people who need soda, and maybe you hire some freight people, but that's about it. You know, this is not that. This is like, you know, we rely on you doing your job, and even like our relationship, say something happens, you know, which, you know, nothing ever happens, right?
Happens.
You know, but say something could happen, right? You know, then like our relationship is what is the foundation for providing, you know, like better service to the people that were affected by whatever may happen, right? Because it's like, I can come to you and say, hey, you know, this happened, I need you to do this. And because we have that relationship, you're like, you know, absolutely, no problem, we'll make it right. Versus if the relationship's not there, you can't provide that same level of service.
And the relationship is so much deeper when you test it like that. When you call me and I'm like, you know what, Zach, I got you, I'm gonna take care of it. And then you hang up that phone and you're like, wow, my respect for Ben just went here. I owe him one. That's a good, you know, I have a lot more trust. Because now you thought you liked me, you thought you trusted me, but now you know. And you really, those relationships are, and again, and those types of hypotheticals can happen 5 times in one summer. And all of a sudden you become very close with somebody. They could. I'm sure at other companies they happen a lot more. You know, but they can, right? I mean, you really know what people are made out of when it hits the fan, you know?
And it's like with it being such a niche industry, there's this like presumption that everyone knows everyone. But you, for me at least personally, I'll just speak for myself. Coming out of business school, right? You assume that you're going to be cordial with competitors, for example, let's say. But then you get into relocation and you're like, man, people are like best friends with their competitors.
Yeah,
it's so
crazy.
strange.
It's wild.
It's cool. It's awesome. It's like in the best way possible. It's strange, but you just kind of see how the industry itself is kind of a family. Like obviously any relocation management company is going to have multiple partners because the volume is just too big for any one company to handle. So then you see, you know, all of these service providers that come to our event, for example, within the same temp living industry or the same household goods industry, who are, you know, for all intents and purposes, competing for that volume. And we all hang out, we all have a good time, and we all do our jobs, you know, and we're going to put our best foot forward and we're going to represent our companies well. But it was the strangest thing coming into this industry and witnessing that. So
yeah, it's wild.
So we have a little bit of a story, me and Phillip here, and because when we were trying to get you to come on the podcast, I was like, you know, we're like, what could we talk to Ben about? You know, we kind of laid out our list, and I'm like, well, you know, Ben's really outgoing. He really puts himself out there, right? Let's share our story of how when we put ourselves out there.
Yeah.
Okay, how'd it go?
And so, all right, so I had this idea where it's like, you know, I really want the podcast to grow, you know, but I want to bring on like it, you know, it can be relocation, which is great. And we need to have that like in-depth, you know, what should we do about the future of relocation, right? But, you know, our audience is professionals. They want to grow in leadership. You know, a lot of the people are leaders, you know, let's bring on some leaders, right? And so we're like, what better leader than Matt Rule, you know, could we get on this podcast?
And for those of you who don't know, that's the head football coach of University of Nebraska. So.
Who's going to win a national championship in like a couple of years.
You know?
So anyway, so we're like, you know, let's try it. let's pitch him on, coming into the podcast and stuff like that. And so we got Ben and Nate, and I kind of lured Phillip down here. He didn't even know we were going to do a filming of this, but I got him in the room.
You filmed like an ask? You pitched him like
we made a YouTube video,
okay.
right?
Just like this, yeah.
Just like this. So like Phillip didn't even know we were doing this. I was like, come down to the studio with me, and then so like walked down the studio, he opened it up, and like all the lights were, and he's like, what is this?
Yeah.
And it's like, I was like, we're going to pitch Matt Rule right now. And so we sat down, and we
what was your first impression of this idea?
I thought, not to be a Debbie Downer, I thought it was lofty.
Lofty. So this is a very nice friend you have, by the way. Willing to even indulge in this. It's like I thought it was, and calling it lofty is very kind.
And it's one of those things where it's like I believe in us, and I believe in what we bring to the table.
There's a but
there's a certain schedule that college football coaches that are that into me and follow. And so I figured just doing the math on the amount of time he would have available in general, and then the amount of time he'd be willing to give us.
See, I look at it different. I'm like, you don't coach the Panthers anymore, right? Didn't he coach Didn't he coach the NFL? I'm like, so your schedule's got to be a little more flexible.
No, this is the
NIL. This is a step up.
Cornhuskers step up for the Carolina Panthers.
Exactly. So anyway, we got him down here, and we just sat in the seat for like a half hour, and we just tried to figure out a pitch. Like talking to him through the camera, like kind of joking around, put it together, sent it off, and we also made a video for his assistant, because you have to send it to his assistant, right? And so
we sent the assistant video first.
Yes.
The gatekeeper.
Pitching him to help us pitch Matt Rule. And then we also sent the Matt Rule video.
So you sent it 1-2 punch, or you sent him both videos?
We sent him both, but we made it very clear, like, this video is for you, Jackson Walker.
I like that.
Anyway, so we sent it out, and Jackson wrote back, and guess what he said?
What?
You'll have to go through our media relations department.
Oh.
So anyway, he was really nice. You were good. But
you were good. Like he's watching. Yeah. You were good. It's not you, Jackson.
Anyway, so we went through the media relations. They said, we'll get back to you. Unfortunately, Matt can't do the podcast, but thank you. And so I, asked, well, can we pitch him next year? And they said, by all means, that'd be great. He's just really busy this year.
There'll be a new grad student in this role, and you can try again. Did you make a video for the media relations person? Did you give
but see, we're growing.
The same effort that you gave to Jackson? Did you give? Because that could have been an opportunity right there.
I would say the video that we sent is like, there were parts where it's like, hey, Jackson, do us a favor, buddy.
So you're just gonna redo it. You're gonna edit out the Jackson part.
But there was a lot of clips of like Matt Rule coaching at football practice.
Ben did a phenomenal job on this. I will show it to you. It's phenomenal.
Clips of him in there. Like a hype video.
It is. It was a total hype video.
Pictures of him from.
We don't even
Temple,
know if he saw
Baylor,
it.
From Carolina, and Nebraska.
We don't even know if he saw it. But
we try to make it. Like you've relocated. Quite a few times in your life for your work.
Nice angle.
So
no, but it's just like he
quite a few times. I probably will again.
He's like,
if you don't break us a national. No, I was kidding.
No, but he's like the guy. Like when you want to talk about following a process, right? Getting the right people around you. Trusting in like the intangibles, right?
And like building.
Like that's everything you want in a leader, right?
He's a builder. I mean, everywhere he goes, and I mean, it's similar to your journey, right? Like you have to have this, like, I'm going to build this mindset, because it's easy to walk into, an established RMC like NEI where I'm like, oh, it's like foundation's there, the ladder is there. I just have to climb it.
People have done it before. You got the Pam Jacknicks of the world to follow in the footsteps of. Yep.
And people are more than happy and willing and super supportive of kind of like pushing you up that ladder, even not just kind of teaching you how to climb it. But then you have like the builders who you really have to just have this mindset of like, I refuse to let it fail. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to get the best people here. And because we're the best people, this will be the best product. And that's kind of what Matt Rule has done everywhere he's been.
So that's why we wanted him.
Yeah.
And it was pretty formative for me because it's like, even though he said no, right? We were like, now I don't feel that bad about asking other people.
The next guy, for real.
Like, so I was like, even though we didn't get Matt Rule, we're going to try for Warren Buffett. He's our safety.
Yeah, our fallback school is Warren Buffett. I love it. He's got time. I saw his calendar. Him and Bill Gates did a thing. And they said busy's the new stupid. And Bill Gates is like, Warren, give me your calendar, Warren. And he's like, see, there's nothing on here. There's a Tuesday in November. He's got something. And other than that, there's nothing on here. And Warren's like, yeah, it's true. It's true.
Warren, my fellow University of Nebraska Lincoln Business School graduate, we have that in common. If you want to come talk about Nebraska, if you want to come impart some wisdom, more than happy to have you.
The second best company in Omaha,
Second best.
besides Berkshire Hathaway.
Right, yeah.
Come through.
I also,
We use them.
Berkshire Hathaway owner right here.
There you go.
There you go.
I own like a penny's worth, but
Yeah. He could come do his town hall or his company-wide thing here.
I saw a quote from him talking about how he doesn't travel. He's like, I don't even go to Iowa.
Yeah, no, I actually love a lot of Warren Buffett quotes. Actually, he's got one that's kind of makes sense now. Actually, he's like, when the tide goes out, you can see who's swimming naked. And it's true, right? Because there's, even when we look at the relocation,
Phillip's got a bad visual right now.
Well, think about your competitors. They're out there swimming naked right now. Yeah, well, you can see who's really got good fundamentals in their business, who doesn't have too much debt on their books, who is financially strong enough to survive right now. I mean, we're going into a time right now where a lot of our competitors, whether it be recruitment agencies or moving companies or relo companies or pick a vertical, are getting somewhat exposed financially because they just they've got too much debt, or they kind of built this company on a foundation that wasn't sturdy. And that's also another way to pick up market share. When people go out of business, I mean, your share increases, and then when the overall tide comes back in and lifts all the boats, then all of a sudden you have more share. So I think there's going to be a lot of consolidation in our industry, which also poses an opportunity for financially stable and secure companies.
Do you have any stories of falling flat on your face?
Oh my gosh, literally or figuratively?
Let's start with the figurative first, just to be nice.
No, I think people ask me, like, if you wrote a book, what would it be called? And I said it would be a coffee table book of my apology letters called I Screwed Up, I'm Sorry, Please Forgive Me. And it would literally be just an anthology of all the emails I've written to my clients, transferees, etc., being in the moving business for 15 years, explaining how we screwed up, how we'll never do it again, what corrective actions we're going to take, how much money we're sending them, whatever. And because I screw up all the time, constantly. I don't want to oversell it, but I mean, it's hard to undersell it. Like I really do. So, and I think it's just, here's another quote. It's success is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. And that was a Churchill quote, I believe, and you think about his situation. Every night they turned out the lights and got bombed by the Germans for how long? And they had to wake up every day and keep the fight going, and I think in business, that's sometimes how it is. And we go through tough times, like we've been going through a little bit recently, or like we went through with COVID, or like we went through with 2008, and you're just taking on the chin for a lot of times, and you just got to keep getting back up. And so, because I think early in my career, even when I was waiting tables as a kid, like I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off. And I had a boss, the director of the call center. I'm like flying around. We used to have these. It was summertime, and we would do like 780 transactions in a day, and like the lights would go off in the call center, and red meant like the sales line's holding, and blue meant the escalation lines holding, are all going off, and we have this projector with all the calls holding, and I'm just like taking it really, because I care a lot. I'm just flying, I'm running through the office like, do this, get on the phone, do that, whatever, can I help you? I'm taking supervisor escalation calls, whatever. And the director came out of the office. He's like, Ben, slow down, calm down. He's like, what's wrong? I'm like, we got calls holding over here. We got this. I got hands over here. You know, we got to hit our numbers. Or we got to get our conversion rate up. You know, he's like, nobody's dying. It's not surgery. Like, it's okay. If people have to hold a little longer on the telephone to get their move quoted, it's all right. And that, him giving me permission in that moment to chill and like prioritizing my mental health, but also probably the mental health of the entire floor that saw me running around like my hair was on fire, like was huge for me, you know? And I try to give that to my people when I have the presence of mind to do that.
That's that whole like slow is smooth, smooth is fast type thing.
Or like the quote, like, be quick, but don't rush. It's just kind of, you know, you want to do things fast and you want to, and we're all for that. But like you're saying, the mistakes come when you're rushing and you don't have a chance to put out the most quality product. So there's definitely something to kind of taking a step back and taking a breath.
Yeah.
Ben, I think you've given us more than enough time. I want to really say thank you for coming in and chopping it up with us for a while. And we want to say thank you also to Phillip for joining us on Relocation Leader. And yeah,
this is great. It was a lot of fun, guys. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And I just want to say also that, you know, it's been a pleasure. I've met you at a couple industry events here and there, and the in-between sections can go pretty quick. So you just say hi and whatever, but it's been a real pleasure to actually get to know you a little bit. And, you know, not that you need it, but if you want to take a second to plug where people can find you at.
Yeah, appreciate it. Follow me on LinkedIn is really my number one platform. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with as many people as possible. We also are Glomo_consulting on Instagram. And I just appreciate everybody checking out the podcast, Love and Reload. It's a LinkedIn Live. It's also live on YouTube and on Facebook. So if you find my profile and hit the little bell over there, you'll get notified when we go live, and then you get in the conversation and, you know, maybe network with some people.